Vacation at 4:01 on 22nd.
I think so.
Hopefully.
24.
Perfect. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wendy,
She's on, yeah.
stay Wendy. All right.
Hi.
All right, we will start with the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes special session minutes September 4th and 16th, regular session minutes of September 17th, closed session minutes September 16th, approval of electric bus purchase, broker services RFP award, travel request, personnel, check registers of September 24, board revenue and expenditures of September 24.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on any of the items?
No.
All right,
To see the buses on that.
it's nice, right?
Fine, see the one.
Yeah, pretty clear progression. Been looking at that for a lot of years, so. All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Move into employee group reports. We have any reps from, oh yes, Mary Morgan.
I'll make this really brief. Good evening. He just has a few things to report. As most of you know, UEA opposed Amendment A, which would have taken away an earmark for public education funding and potentially fund vouchers, among other things. Although this amendment was voided, it is still on the ballot. We encourage everyone to still vote against Amendment A, regardless of the fact that it will be voided. We know this proposal will resurface in the future, and we want to send the message that we oppose anything that takes away public school funding and potentially funds private religious education. UEA has also recommended Brian King for governor, Chris Campbell in House District 4, and Carol Lear for Utah State Board of Education. As the election draws near, we always advocate for civility and respect as we move towards November 5th and beyond. PCA continues to focus on safe and equitable schools for all students, which is supported by Policy 3013. As always, teachers should be continued to be supported through this policy, and we ask anyone in an administrative role, whether it be at the board level, the district level, or the school site level, to support and protect against any form of bullying, both for teachers and students alike. Happy Friday tomorrow. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, do we have anyone from any other employee groups? If not, we will move on to student on the board report.
So, I'm Quinn, I'm the new student on the board, I'm replacing Zach from last year. And, for HOCO, we had just about 700 people attend, we made $6,000 in profits. And then we donated $150 to ASPCA to help, with the hurricane for pets and $150 to the Red Cross for people. And then we have Souls for Souls running, which is a fundraiser we run to get shoes and we send them to less privileged communities. That started October 7th and it's gonna end November 22nd. Then next week we have our Halloween week coming, which is on the 28th, we're gonna have Powder Puff. On the 29th, we're gonna have a movie night. On the 30th is Zombie Night, and we all have corresponding like themes for what we're gonna wear to school. And then November 21st and 22nd, we have tryouts for our talent show, and the talent show is gonna end up being on the 20th of December. And that is it. We have prom May 31st as well.
Great. Mr. Cameron, please.
Good afternoon, board report for operations, the 24th of October, 2024. For buildings and grounds, our operations folks are preparing for snow removal equipment, or for snow removal equipment vendor contracts and salt supply for the upcoming winter. MHT and architects are here with us tonight to discuss further the master athletic facility plan options. District study on unreinforced masonry will begin soon with our FY25 capital outlay allocated funds. A cost estimate was received and Park City municipal coordination is underway for a permanent outfield fence in the women's softball diamond at Park City High School. The conditional use permit package supporting the phase 1, phase and phase 2 athletic facility expansion is nearing completion. Plans for McCollin kindergarten room expansion in existing wings are also being developed. And the FY26 capital outlay budgeting process will begin next month. In transportation, the department lost 3 drivers just as the school year started. 2 of those vacancies are filled and 1 more will be filled soon. Transportation is now working to support more athletic trips. The pool of drivers and subs is becoming healthier and that helped us reduce charter costs. Winter readiness checks were performed on all the buses and white fleet vehicles. Eckertville Middle School bus lane striping was operationally tested. It will improve the loading and avoid student confusion with permanent striping coming soon. All of our Space Aid riders for the year have been accommodated. Child nutrition services are working to optimize the serving window offerings at Eckertville Middle School and training students to improve their serving velocity. We're working through a large pool of qualified applicants right now to fill 1 staff vacancy we have in CNS at Eckertville Middle School, and I think that offer was extended today. We're working with HR to begin staff reorganization in the anticipation of the Treasure Mountain Junior High closure. And John is implementing the school year 26 USD regulations already, which are primarily reducing added sugars and lowering sodium content in foods offered to our students. And they're reworking the scratch recipes over next year to meet the new standards at the implementation date. Human Resources is circulated a memo regarding the PTO pilot payout program, and Craig and Randy have been doing road shows as required by the staff. To help reduce any confusion. Security, you may have noticed at the intersection of Comstock and McCollin Treasure parking lots there, new lighting has been added, curb cuts have been put in place, and striping has been added to greatly increase the safety there. And I'm glad for that, especially now as the mornings get darker and the students are riding, that the crosswalks are all lit. New House Bill 84 required school security specialists or deans are receiving weekly training from Carol and I. Ballistic film is being installed on the interior glass classrooms at the new Eckertville Middle School and Park City High School wings. The antenna reconfiguration radio programming at Eckertville Middle School and Carly's Park Elementary School are greatly improving our radio coverage. As much as we had difficulty with the smoke from the Yellow Lake fires, it forced us to administratively have a conversation about what is the proper standard to have kids stay inside versus not. And if we have inside, we have a purple air quality AQI index of greater than 150, what we automatically bring the kids in. Between 100 and 150, we'll use discretion. The kids who have some respiratory distress, we watch closer and run inside the community. The first security committee meeting was held on last week, the 15th of October, and that's a very effective tool to continue improvements in the security department. That's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for keeping us safe. Caleb, all right.
What we did up there. 30 days of change in. It's been an awesome 30 days to truly invest and spend time in the buildings and see what happens on the first day as this gets pulled up here in just a second. I had the privilege of walking around McCollin Elementary School, and I had to take a quick selfie because this young man had a shirt on and with my last name, it seemed to work out well. So it's fine, everything's fine, but I am the guy sitting on a chair on fire. So I enjoyed that moment and I enjoyed the humor in the first day. I wanted to, on my first ever superintendent report, just touch base on our 5 pillars as well as our mission and vision. And our mission is truly to support all students equitably achieve their academic and social potential. And we're about the whole child, right? We need to make sure they're safe, they're supported, they're engaged, they're challenged, and they're healthy. And there was no better way to capture that than with the opening of our CTE wing. So I have a quick video for you on the next slide that truly captures our mission and vision in action. A couple more seconds, and if it doesn't want to work with the Zoom connection, we will survive. That the highlight to it, there we go.
Sounds
I say it's a beautiful space. Much better than a scratchy video, but what I can say is that this space is highlighting and allowing our students to engage at a level where we've never been able to engage before, between flight simulators and commercial cooking, construction labs, health sciences, businesses. It's a space that's a magnet to me. Every time I go in there, I was able to walk through it again this afternoon. It's truly our education coming to life, and it's a partnership. It's a partnership between our community who's supported a bond. It's a partnership with this board leading a charge with courage to move forward with projects that don't always that are not always received with the greatest enthusiasm, and then the Parks of Education Foundation has come in and behind us and filled it with incredible equipment. And I truly believe that captures our vision. So we'll go down past that because the video didn't work. Note to self. Got it. Next time. The next one, we're going to talk about academic success, and the state report cards came out and they are exciting. Our schools are achieving, one slide prior, our elementary schools are achieving at incredible levels. If you look at Farley's Park Elementary School, if you look at the past 3 years, their percentile, these have always been great schools, but through strategic shifts in instruction, intentionality of teachers, intentionality of the leaders, and an incredible community, Farley's Park has gone from a 52nd percentage school to a top 3% school. Trailside Elementary School, top 10%, top 10, not 0.03% in the entire state. And the schools above them are some private charter schools primarily. So this is the top of the top. McPullen Elementary is leading our district and a state leader in early literacy progress. And we know that that's an area that we want to continue to lean into and improve upon. And then you can see Jeremy Ranch continues to be one of our exemplary achievement, where the proficiency scores are through the roof in all subject areas. And the great thing about the state report cards is the truth is a standardized exam will never tell us the quality of the education in and of itself, but it certainly highlights what we're doing well, and these highlight our schools incredibly well. And then on top of that, there are opportunities to dive into issues, and I'm excited to speak to that in a moment. At our secondary schools, you can see Eckerdale Middle School, a 26% increase in growth scores in our bottom performing 25% students. That's incredible. It's quite unprecedented. Treasure Mountain scores I'm very proud of. We've been able to be on a trajectory of rise for a long time. We're one of the state leading junior highs, and we continue to push our achievement scores. And then Park City High School, our flagship, and a place we should all be incredibly proud of, has a 96% college and career readiness rating. And I think that as our students continue to go through that school, they continue to be prepared for their life after high school. So all of this information can be found, and this report is public, but it can be found by clicking on the Utah School Report Card link. But again, the test scores only share part of the story. The privilege of my job is I'm able to see the real story. And if you go to the next slide, you can see what happens in some of these lower levels. This is Miss Rockwood's and Miss Giblin's classes down here in the bottom two corners at Trailside Elementary School. And when you go to the school, and I start my day there on Wednesdays, and when you go to the school and you see from moment one engaged students, smiling, learning, laughing. One in particular, I happen to coach in flag football, so he couldn't help it. He lost his engagement and he was focused on me. But outside of that, these are engaged students. You go into Mr. Giddings' classroom, he is an artist and how he teaches band. And there is noise everywhere, and it is a place that is filled with joy and learning, immediate feedback. He is truly a world-class teacher. And then one of the finest teachers in the nation, Mr. Ed Mueller, he is working in a class with MLL students. These are students learning English. They're level 1-2, which means they've just started their journey in English language production. And he is working with those students. I happen to pop in, and that is him. And I'm hearing students using academic language, English academic language, to describe how the growth cycle of plants happens. And Mr. Newlick is up with them, communicating with them, pushing them. And you don't see in most schools level 1, 2 English language or multi-language learners producing academic language. You do in Park City High School. And that's why those scores exist. This is an incredible district. Do we have work to do? Absolutely, we have work to do. And if you go to the next slide, we're doing that work. This is our excellent personnel. These are both 2 Friday professional developments that I was able to watch. And this is the K-3 literacy curriculum. That is an area where we're not satisfied. And we were able to partner with PC Reads to bring in a professional development session for all of our K-3 educators, because we know if students can read by the time they're done with 3rd grade, they're on a trajectory to success. And we're not satisfied with our scores yet because we have kids that aren't reading at grade level yet. So that's some of the strategy we're using. The 95% curriculum that's been adopted. I cannot commend Stacey Briggs, Katie McGinn, and the entire K-3 teaching team for engaging that on a Friday afternoon. It's hard to do that on a Friday afternoon, and they were engaged, willing to learn. Secondary, personalized competency-based learning. We believe that we can do more to personalize learning at the secondary level, so all students are getting what they need to be successful. This is all of Treasure Mountain Junior High and Park City High School staff coming together, working together, talking about realignment and how that they can best serve each and every single student, because every student deserves our best. And we believe the model to do that is through professional learning communities and personalized competency-based learning. It's just a lot of fun to watch. And that's how we're strategically addressing areas that we need to improve on, because we need to improve. But we also need to celebrate. And those are celebrations of the hard work. If you go to the next slide for me. Leadership, this was my opportunity to be out and about. And I've had an incredible time seeing our education come to life. And this was my experience, some selfies included, but connecting with teachers and students and seeing our community come together. And I'm very proud of the leadership we're providing, we'll continue to provide for this district. And then certainly, last but not least, 2 more pillars to touch on. Communication, our FACE team, which is our family and community engagement team, as we're all aware of, are working hard to try to make sure that they're communicating effectively. We also have outreach in there that specializes in our supporting our Latino and Hispanic families. So they're working on different community events, monthly podcasts, monthly newsletters. We had our media request for the electric buses. Thank you, Mr. Tanner, for your hard work. You continue to lead the way on those types of projects for us. And then just numerous celebrations around the district. We have 4 on the next slide. Primary sources of ways we communicate, and that's our website, which I commend the FACE team for doing their absolute best to keep it up to date. A website is not an effective communication tool if it's not up to date, and Colt, Heidi, and Eric and Lori go above and beyond to ensure that our website is up to date. We use social media as an avenue for celebrations. We have media requests, and we've been working with KPCW, the park director, the town left, to be great partners. And it's their job to put out the information, both the good and the bad, and we're working hard to be a partner with them in that process. And then our monthly newsletter and podcast, I'm impressed by the work. Stay tuned for our November newsletter. I would encourage everyone here and obviously the board members to read it. It does have a lot of up-to-dates. A lot of times when you want to know something, you'll find it in that place. So the team does a great job there. And last but certainly not least is our community alliances. And there's one that I want to touch on today because I think it's probably our biggest among the incredible alliances, and that's our Ed Foundation. And I had the privilege to attend the Red Apple Gala earlier this month, and our keynote speaker was our very own 12th grade student, Dylan Rifkin. And that's a pretty special moment when you see a 12th grader being the keynote fundraising and raising over $600,000 at that event for our kids every day. And his father, Ben Rifkin, should be incredibly proud. He got to stand on the stage with his son. I couldn't help but take this photo. I got a little head in the corner. But outside of that, it was a special moment for me to see Ben, who's given an incredible amount to our district as a Ed Foundation board member for over 10 years. And Dylan go and ask this community to continue to support us. So that is a pinnacle community alliance. We were able to witness that in person as they continue to pour money into our schools. So it was an incredibly special month to see all of the pillars of our district come together. So as I focus on the future and we continue, we want to remember that supporting staff is at the heart of what we do, and we'll continue to invest in their growth and well-being. We're going to continue to foster an inclusive and thriving school environment, because ultimately I believe that this district is a leader. It's a leader in education in Utah, and we want to be a leader in the nation. And that's where we're headed, and that's where we'll continue to go. So those are my final thoughts and my first go as superintendent report.
Well done.
Awesome, thank you. We'll keep you.
All right, student enrollment numbers.
Okay, so we'll be putting up a slide here, so just to go over the enrollment, this is the October 1 count, for 2024, our number is 4117, it's 129 students down from last year. For the 2023 enrollment of 4246. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Kind of a couple of interesting things is K-5, we had a loss of 24 students, but 6 through 12, 105 students, which is not surprising because our larger classes are in the secondary level, right? We know that's coming. If I go to the next slide, the differential versus migration, I think the migration is really telling the story here. So we had a total, our differential was 215 students between graduates last year and kindergarten coming in this year. But we only lost 129 students. We had migration of 86 students coming in. 72 of those were the elementary level and 14 of those were at the secondary level. So, but that migration is those larger classes end up leaving over the next few years. We will see migration pick up. We will see the differential decrease, right, between kindergarten and the secondary or 12th graders leaving. So I think that's important to know. Other important factors to know, and I think on a previous slide, this number does not affect FY25 funding. So let's be clear about that. A lot of people think we're funded on the October 1 count. We're not. We're funded on ADM for the prior year. So it will not affect any funding in FY25. The other important factors are the reconfigure transition is kind of lets us without having schools bust into the seams. This allows to have that transition a lot easier and to be able to place people where you need to place them and not have start those schools bust into the seams. The other important factor to realize is we have approved developments that have been approved throughout the boundaries of the school district. But they just haven't come to fruition yet. There is work going on with the movie studio properties over there, which could yield some additional kids. But right now, we're looking at between the approved developments and the migration that's coming in, we will hit a point where we'll start to climb back out and actually work with that. So I'll leave the report at that. For any questions, let me know.
Any questions on that? All right, looking at the 25-26 calendar options.
So we had a calendar committee that was able to spend time together and representation from administration, from PCA, from the classified professional organizations to really come together and provide a couple options for you all. There were two options that surfaced as the best. There is never a perfect calendar for all, but there were two options that surfaced as the best. There was option 1 or option A, which would be very similar to historical calendars. It doesn't include a Yom Kippur day off, and it aligns pretty similar to the traditional calendars we've had. And it was the preferred option of the committee with a caveat that they and I are very committed to strategic, if this was the option adopted, very strategic planning around the Rosh Hashanah Jewish holiday, because we do have concerns that we have students, we have staff members that have been uncomfortable with taking the day off, feeling like if I take that day off, I'm missing out academically at a level that is detrimental, and we don't want people's belief systems to be impacted and not be able to take a day off cleanly. So if this option was adopted, our commitment is, especially around the secondary schools, but even at the elementary, improved communication and strategies within the bell schedule to ensure it's a day that is easier for all to take off, especially our Jewish families and our Jewish students and Jewish staff members on Rosh Hashanah. Option 1A, which was not the preferred option of the calendar committee, but did come forth, was to have Rosh Hashanah also be a holiday, and that alleviates that concern entirely. the complexity, the way to do this, would be a shift, is our fall break was shifted up. And it actually, in this situation, Yom Kippur would be on the fall break. That would be an earlier fall break than is the traditional norm.
Is that UEA?
That is UEA,
Okay.
also known as UEA, it's no
Okay.
longer
Oh,
UEA
it's
break,
no longer break. Okay.
that's what we all call it, so
Okay.
UEA break or fall break.
Exactly.
That way, the calendar itself, in terms of start date and end date, would not actually be impacted. It would just be moving the fall break in a creative manner to do that. The reason that was still not the preferred option was, people felt that, the fall break, moving it that early was not ideal, and was not preferred. But there is concern if we kept UEA break, also added Rosh Hashanah, the calendar, that would force the school year to start earlier or end later, and there's some significant concern. We have to bring on new teachers, which is 3 days prior to the 12th, and giving our principals, which start August 1st, time to meet with district admin, and then you bring on the new teachers on the 3rd, pushing that start time any earlier felt very detrimental, especially to the teaching and learning department. So that was our creative solution, to not start earlier or end later, because if we were to end, for example, on the 8th, we would be, that day we predict would not be a well-attended day. And there will always be a last week of school. That just is a reality. We don't want to make it a last 6 days of school. We want to minimize that impact. So there are reasons why there was a lot of dialogue, and I will say not everyone on the committee said this was the best way to handle the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as being days off, but it was kind of where we left. If that's the option, that's the option that the calendar committee brought forward. I'm very grateful for the 8 members of the calendar committee that got together to put these options forward, and I think they're both very workable. And my commitment, if option 1 is selected, is again to be strategic around Rosh Hashanah. I think that's an area where we can do better. And if option 1A is the direction the board goes, that solves that problem, and that's also okay. So I'm very comfortable with both options.
Okay, any questions or thoughts on these?
So snow days and miscellaneous.
So they do have makeup snow days that are also potential PD days built in. Is there anything else on there where I missed something else on? 2.
So the 5/22, the no school makeup snow day, that is only if we have a snow day, then, or how does that one work? 5/22.
Yeah, if we have a snow day, then
Then
that's a
that's-
school day,
Okay.
but the same March 20th.
So we have 2 potential lineups.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, wait, okay.
Meredith, any thoughts or comments?
I just really appreciate the committee and Caleb, making this a priority and trying to figure out what the right solution is. You know, there's not a perfect fit, but what are some creative ways that we can make this better?
There is also a desire to get a 3-year calendar later presented, but for now, we just need to get next year's solved, because we have a community that wants to know, and
Sure.
we're eager to provide that information.
Start with the 5-meter targets and then we'll get to that.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, I think it's important to have, both of the high holidays off. We have issuing families and staff, who are both uncomfortable taking days off and are questioned, for taking days off, especially for students. And I think as it gets into the older years, that becomes a bigger issue. I know it's been an issue in my family. So, given that the start date and the end date are the same, essentially, I think it is an important show of good faith to the Jewish community that the district is aware of the holidays and is allowing for those families to celebrate without penalty, especially given the recent history that we've had. So, for my personal view and my family, I would say that's pretty important. Especially given the creativity that you guys have had in terms of having breaks and starting and stopping at the same time, which I think is impressive. I think it's a good precedent to set.
What do you think of moving the fall breakup.
I don't think, I mean, it used to be the same weekend every year because of UVA, but that doesn't exist anymore. So to me, I don't know, as a parent, it seems arbitrary.
Yeah, but I mean, consolidate or combining that with.
What's the reservation with moving the full breakup?
I do think that, some of the teachers on the committee expressed a little bit of concern over routine. Establishing routine, I don't wanna put anyone on the spot, Mary, did you get any feedback on that? Is that? I don't wanna
Only
put you on
the
the spot.
teachers were just a little bit concerned about the academic flow and disrupting that academic flow. I mean, again,
How does that work for a week? 1 week.
Really.
well, yeah, because then you have the week before that, you would have only a 4-day week, and then the next week you'd have only a 3-day week. So it does disrupt the academic flow just a bit. Not horrible, but I mean, we're adjustable. We're flexible.
It wasn't a point of heavy contention, but I promised the committee that I would represent that option 1 was their first, but it was an option 1 and a 1A. It wasn't an option 1 and a 2. I think it's fair for the board, to discuss today, solicit feedback if necessary, make a decision.
The other suggestion, was, and I don't know, if this is the appropriate time to bring it up, but, to have both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur keep the fall break on the 16th and 17th, and the teachers would still need an extra contract day, and we could come back on Monday the 11th. But again, that pushes that timeline up for new teachers and for our admin. So,
That was an option that was discussed. TNL was teaching and learning, was highly concerned, just condensing everything in. And from my administrative perspective, that extra days would be highly valuable at the end of the year. But again, the great thing about the committee was no one expected perfection. Everyone knew, let's get some good options for you all to consider and for y'all to make a decision. And we're definitely in support of doing a better job around the high holy days, regardless of the model, and in full support of whatever direction the board takes it.
Okay, now can I just mention one thing?
Thanks, Lori.
Some of our surrounding districts have that 16th and 17th off, that's their
Yeah.
UEA break, and we have many families, teachers that live in Heber, live in South Summit. And so that may be a hardship for them if we move it to earlier. I mean, we'll never be exactly on with their
Right.
schedule, but
and I would say that that's why the suggestion was made to keep it on the 16th and 17th, keep both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, move the teacher day to the 11th, and we would have 5 teacher days in the beginning of the school year.
And how does that affect prep for teaching and learning? Is that a positive or is that?
Well, so new teachers have a 6, 7, and 8. And then typically the admin our principals do not come back until the 1st. So there's typically an admin launch, new teacher, it just tightens, that time frame is already tight. Again, is everything workable? It probably is. I'm not here to come and say that it's not workable. The challenges are simply in something's gotta give. We don't have unlimited days. I know that,
If we do both of those, are we not hitting the number of student days then? If we do, I love Mary's idea, then are we taking one student day away that we have to ask for?
the first day of school would have to move from the 18th to the 15th. So the first day of school would also be a Friday. That's a little funky. Again, perfection, probably not. I don't think we should there's a lot of good options, and I think we can run with a good option. I feel good about that, and I really appreciate the Jewish perspective. I've also been able to speak with some members of the Jewish community. I know that it's something that we can do better on. So whatever direction the board takes it, we're gonna either have different strategies for that high holy day, Rosh Hashanah, if it is a school day, and trying to create the comfort that's necessary, or if the board moves in the direction of taking it off, we respect and understand that fully.
I mean, speaking from a single parent, working person, it's hard when you have and I have immense respect for the holidays, I'm not saying that, but I like the idea of consolidating the 2nd and the 3rd. So that every week, a working parent doesn't have to come up with a solution. Probably not the only one. Just 2 cents,
Meaning,
meaning if there's no school and you have to go to work, what do you do with care? If it's a child that needs care.
right, but you're talking about same, so fall break is either 2 days.
Yeah.
Or it's 1 day plus Yom Kippur, it's the
Right.
same,
But
in
it's
terms
one,
of,
yeah,
you
it's,
like 1A, is what you're saying.
I'm saying it like 1 day.
Which.
Consolidates, them, and then you
fall
don't
break
every
and
week
holiday.
have to come up with a plan.
So I feel like that creates an issue on the 16th and the 17th. I mean, it's, whenever we do it, it's gonna be an issue.
Right, exactly.
The only way to make that work, Carol, is to put the November 7th, take that out as a PD day and make that a student day. And then we would be able to start on the 18th with students. But we would have 5 days in the year, if we just created one.
So one of those 5 days becomes a PD day.
So they would start, teachers would start on the 11th, right? So
Students could start on the
students would start on
18th.
the 18th.
We would have to take, now, of course, that affects teaching and learning, so, but we would have to take out that November 7th PD day and make that a student day in order to make those days work. But that means that if we were to move it into the 16th.
So you're saying add a contract day during the year as opposed to adding it at the beginning of the year?
I think adding a student day, you're gonna have to add a student day. If you move the fall break to the 16th and 17th, you keep Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, you have to have an extra student day. So we would have to take November 7th as not a PD day, put it as a student day, move that PD day for teachers to the 11th. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Up to August 11th.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right.
something.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
students would still start on the 18th,
Uh-huh.
Which still creates the problem for teaching and learning.
which also creates more problems. So, you know. It's not a perfect
Whack-a-mole, isn't
Nothing is a perfect solution.
Yeah, I mean, like what I'd say is I think 1A is a pretty good compromise. I've reiterated that. You know, asking Jewish students or teachers to be in school on those days is the equivalent of saying you should be in school on Easter or Christmas. You know, and no one would ever do that, right? And I'll tell you from my daughter's perspective, telling her teacher ahead of time that she's not gonna be there and being like, oh, where are your parents taking you on vacation? As the response is pretty shitty, you know, within its religious observance. And I think, you know, one of the great things about living in Utah is that it's a state that respects religion quite a bit. And, you know, it's one of the reasons that I and my family live here. And I think it would be a great show of support to a community that has felt somewhat marginalized here to do this. So, you know, I feel very strongly about it, but, and I think, you know, I agree, both options are good. But I think it would be a very meaningful, and well-received, change. So, yeah.
Andrew, this is Wendy. Thanks,
I
yeah. Thanks to the calendar committee and Caleb and all for bringing this up. I am in full support of having both of the religious holidays off, and I would defer to the majority on the from the academic lens and what's best for teachers and learning. And if it's, I know it sounds like there's a couple options, but if the fall break becomes and doing that earlier is the right way to manage that, then I defer to that. Or if starting 1 day earlier or taking a different professional day, realize there's sacrifices that have to be made. And I think that I'm in full support of figuring out how to make those sacrifices and have both Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah off.
Okay, question, Mary. If we moved the 7th of November to the 11th of August, we have September 1st off, then we have, just throwing this out here, we would then have the 23rd of September off, which would be Rosh Hashanah. Then we would have the 2nd of October off, which would be Yom Kippur, then we would still have the 16th and 17th off. Is that workable? Because it seems like it keeps the 16th, that's not workable. Cause it would solve a lot, it would keep 16, 17 for everybody else has kids in other districts, we get the 2 other days off. Why wouldn't that?
Well, if you didn't combine if you just made, Yom Kippur on the second.
Yeah.
So that Thursday be off and then you come to school on that Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we'd still have that NBA fall break 16, 17, so we'd get still the 2 holidays off. On their respective days, we'd still have fall break 16, 17. Teachers would have to start on the 11th, the 7th of November would then become a student day.
Yeah, I mean, the funky thing is like the holidays, these holidays change every year.
Yeah, I
It's
was gonna say
different.
that.
It's just like,
It's the same place, it's the other.
it's
town.
different. They change relative to the academic. school year. I mean,
Well, and I was just gonna say the same thing, like, we're not always gonna have fall break need to be
Right.
attached to
Right.
Yom Kippur,
So
because.
that's-
Exactly.
So it's just one year.
And next year, it's gonna be, the next year it'll be on a Wednesday and not a Thursday, so,
Right.
you know,
I,
it's.
yeah,
I think I think there's the first question, which is this year, how does it work to squeeze everything in? And then we could look at 3-year calendar, which is gonna be slightly different, you know?
Although there are a lot of options with the challenges of teaching and learning, and including the heart of that full day. At the beginning of the year, teachers, long and need time in their classroom, and a full PD day in that first week is not going to be, that's not where teachers' minds are. And that's right, their minds are, how do I launch an incredible school year for kids? So although it's workable, I wonder the effectiveness of moving that PD day. I would stand by 1A being the best way to do it for 1 year. And there's a trial and error, and that's something that we need a little grace in the process of the calendar, and then if that's the direction.
So,
It's not
all right, so next step is I think we need to give some guidance on which one to vote on next meeting, is that right? That's how we do it, right? All right, so I guess a straw poll on 1 versus 1A. And
Of these 1A, I think it's right to have both of the holidays. I personally would favor a solution that keeps fall break consistent with the district.
But I agree with Caleb too, like we're gonna have to
Yeah,
sort of see
Wendy,
how this shakes out.
right now we're deciding at 1A.
okay, so let's post 1A and open it for public comment between now and then, and feedback and troubleshooting from PCEA as well as teaching and learning, and let's make sure we're not missing something, and then we'll come back next month and have a further discussion if needed or changes. If you guys come up with any changes or other ideas in the meantime, let us know, you know.
I think the commitment is to take the day off, and it does give us one more time to make sure that we feel good
Yeah.
about this.
Cool. All right, that's always the
Thanks.
craziest thing to discuss. Every year, it's a special one. You guys are gonna enjoy that. Hopefully, the 3-year calendar comes after work. All right, athletic facility improvement baseline. Mr. Tanner, help us write this out.
Scott and I are gonna kind of co-present tonight for you, Cap. We've gone through a lot of the background, as to how we got to where our current recommendation is for the athletic field. So if it's okay with the district, we'd like to really skip over the developmental piece and go right to what problems we think we're solving with the solution that we're proposing. And one of the possibilities for fitting those guys are going to.
Yeah, good to see you again, board. Always welcome my time here. As Mike mentioned, all this information is in your board docs, so if there's anything that you want to circle back on, please let us know. Really, the focus of the master plan was to understand where your pressure points were. And really, the pressure points is fields, and just to be blunt. You have fantastic snow when it snows. We're a little bit abnormal this year. But when it snows, you really become a crunch point of a lot of different activities and sports happening at the same time. And that's kind of complicated by the fact that the spring sports start earlier and earlier. Although there's a dedicated season assigned to each one of these sports, the time that those teams are on the fields, when they're needed to be there for tryouts and practices really, is getting earlier and earlier. And so there's an overlap that happens naturally when snow falls, we can't get on fields, those activities push into gym spaces or other places in the city. And it's creating that pressure point for you. Throughout the master plan, the focus is really zeroed in on the Kearns campus. Although there are other district needs and they've been outlined in other presentations, the idea of solving Kearns solves a lot of the challenges that you've seen as we've looked at those guiding principles of leveling the playing field, being student focused, being community centered and multifunctional and diverse. So let's talk about the proposed solution that was kind of crafted after our last community session in September, I believe. We met together with community members. Nick was involved as well and had a chance to get a little bit of feedback and dialogue about the overall master plan for the Kearns campus. And what you're seeing on the screen is both the proposed phases as well as the associated dollars in 2024 dollars with each one of those pieces. I will say that with any good master plan, if you wanted to do phase one and then skip to phase four, that's within your right, and you could solve many of the challenges you have. But really moving from east to west, the most distinct need is with baseball and softball fields. And you're seeing that those fields fit very nicely on your current Treasure Mountain property. And that if and when the Treasure building is decommissioned and demolished, that would allow for future flexibility to add phase two, which would be additional pitch fields, soccer, lacrosse, multi-use spaces. We would also see that as an opportunity to bring tennis onto the Kearns campus. It's currently being housed at Mark, and that is a pressure point. There's some challenging with scheduling, and that's becoming harder and harder.
Can I ask you a quick question? Do we have bubbles over that since we are such a, like the way the market?
You absolutely could do bubbles. In our cost analysis, we provided that, and it's roughly $500,000 option to look at a bubble.
We have been approached by public-private partnership groups about the possibility of partnering, and if we would cover those with a bubble, the tennis courts, that we would maybe make them available in the evening for pickleball. Or other uses. So,
Of course. Of course.
And just to be clear, the pickleballers are offering to pay.
I'm sorry?
The pickleballers are offering money.
Yes. They would be charged as well.
Yeah. I will say it is only a matter of time before pickleball becomes a sanctioned sport. So just keep it on the radar. It's coming. Phase three would look at improvements to generally the athletic facilities for the high school itself. Those existing spaces have served you well for the last 20 to 30 years, but they're showing their age. The size is really a great challenge, locker room capacity, gender equality. And so that red box that you're seeing on the screen pushes out with a new facility space that would include an expansion of parking capacity. That vacates those current gymnasiums, which would allow you, if you desire, to remodel that into an expanded music suite, which is, again, another pressure point for the school. And that was really an item that was identified in the previous master plan, kind of a long-range 30-year goal to improve that space. You are seeing probably from the last iteration that we are leaning in on keeping Dozier right where it's at, rather than flip-flopping that back over to the other side. You still could have that as potential. Dozier's in a great location. It's a great field. It probably is within the next 5 years needing a resurface or a returf, but that could be rolled into those capital improvement costs. Really, your lack there is access to concessions and restroom facilities that are appropriate. A lot of the other peripheral things could happen as you're looking at the Treasure Mountain Sports Complex or in other capital pieces. Before we shift away from this, any questions on the big picture master plan? Yeah.
Is there anything that we're not addressing in this?
It's very comprehensive. I would say that your parking is probably touching the iceberg of a parking challenge that you have of lots of activities, both including yours and not yours, occurring at the same time. And that could be Sundance, that could be the relationships you have with the mountain. You are increasing your parking stalls by roughly 100 stalls. That's probably still an inadequacy right now on site. For
But
sure.
There's no sport here that we're not addressing that's being left out.
Not currently, no.
Not with this plan, everybody's being done.
Correct.
Water sport, water.
Aquatic sports.
And aquatics would still be over at the upper facility.
Okay.
And we did allocate whether you wanted to either rebuild at that location, improve, even move that piece to the current campus. So those, you do have those numbers for you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One is, based on the usage numbers, why wouldn't phase one be new track and turf? Given the numbers of students and where the growth is in participation.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We label phases in kind of chronological east to west. You absolutely could do
So it's more geographic than
pretty much.
demand driven.
As we went into a lot of these discussions, the idea of that Treasure Mountain Sports Complex became one of the top wish list items for folks. And so that lended itself to think of that as phase one. You absolutely could work on the existing Dozier improvements.
But I do want to talk to Andrew on how the phase one does help address the track and field group, since that's a very large group too. So if you look at each one of the options here, look at the baseball fields, the softball field, you go to the next slide, please. And then the tennis courts and the soccer pitches, the support facility there in the center. Each one of those is doing a good job of attacking and targeting the student group that we're trying to help, you know, the athletics and equity and all those things. So you just look at the softball and baseball and turf fields. We've got right now, according to FY 24 numbers, we have 57 students in those programs. This obviously would address the early spring access with deconflict the internal gyms at the high school with multiple sports competing for space, like Scott showed with the timeline as the spring seasons push further and further to the left. Reduces base and rec field house scheduling pressure. It provides for much reduced game road times and missed classes for our athletes. And it can allow for team expansions as the more field accessibility becomes available. But most importantly, we think that on-campus fields provide quick access for kids. They can walk right over to the field and it can be scheduled right near the end of the academic day. That goes for all the fields, and we think that's a very important item. And the other thing, Scott will show you is one of the options with the baseball fields. We have the ability to place nearly a full-size lacrosse pitch on the or the soccer pitch on the baseball field, outfield for the baseball, which would allow us in the first year to use that space. You can see right there outlined in white. The tennis courts, we've got currently 29 students from last year's numbers in using tennis. But scheduling the mark is becoming increasingly challenging with the Park City teams are being squeezed out. Right now, the girls' practice was pushed back by 1 hour. Boys' practice is at 8:30 at night. We do have possible joint ventures for a public-private partnership, like we just mentioned there, for covering those courts in the bubble. But again, having the courts here would allow our students just to come over and not have that move to the market back into scheduling pressure. So really, we can deconflict that quite a bit and possibly attract more students to the program. But back to your question, Andrew, the soccer pitches is where we really feel, or lacrosse pitches, whatever you want to call them, where Treasure currently is at. You can go back to that slide. We think that this has the biggest overall impact. We've got 372 students between boys and girls soccer, boys and girls lacrosse, and boys and girls track that could be directly impacted by having these two fields available for us. So this would greatly ease the scheduling conflicts for all of those groups. And these are the highest use sports behind football. Would greatly ease the scheduling logistics with on-campus fields replacing multiple locations across town. We have teams practicing around Valley and then Park, all over town. It's very difficult to coordinate that. And plus, those children have to be either driving themselves or transported. The logistical lift associated with that really impacts the kids' time and ability to concentrate in the sport. Allows us to schedule multiple practices and games across all the sports at the same time. And would greatly reduce the scheduling pressure on Dozier and which deconflicts with track and help us deconflict track and field. So track and field is at Dozier, sometimes going on at the same time as football practices, and trying to keep balls or soccer balls or footballs out of the track lanes. There is a problem. We could relocate a lot of that over to the soccer pitches. We could add potentially a fourth soccer team with cutting students right now, the boys lacrosse team. And the girls lacrosse team is that sport continues to grow for the girls, greatly increasing participating. But again, one of the most important things is the logistical help here is that these on-campus pitches provide quick access and scheduling near the end of the academic day, where kids can leave their academic day, go right into their sport instead of having a waiting period or having to move someplace logistically. So efficient scheduling for the kids would really help out. The new support building and bleachers would provide, which have concession areas, have the scorekeepers, has changing areas for the officials, would greatly enhance the overall athletic experience and make it more on par with our peer sets athletically across the state. And Title IX, these proposals here with the Turkey Mountain Sports Complex, it greatly balances the boys and girls programs. It instantly solves the field equity issues. It provides regular non-rotating practice times on campus for both boys and the girls. And again, it just provides quick access to these facilities, very efficient scheduling, and kids can go right from school right into the schools. And we leverage that across potentially 600 kids, or 650 kids in sports. That's a lot of positive benefit for us.
Randy, the costs that we're looking at here on phase one, is what's the total here?
7 to 8.
Phase one, phase two combined, phase one is about 24 to 25, and phase one only just, shoveling ground doing.
Yeah, so 26, so 20, using the number 26 million, which is the Treasure Mountain Sports Complex, which we've been focusing on. How does that look from a tax perspective and from a current funding perspective? Would we be able to do that without using current funds and capital funds?
Yeah, so great question. We would not need to raise taxes. We ran numbers on that 26 million through a lease revenue bond, which the rates right now are not much different between lease revenue and geo loans. There's a market rate is. In order to run that, it'd be an annual payment if it was broken out equally and we didn't, stack it or whatever, then it'd be about a $1.8 million price tag each year for principal and interest. We would then repurpose the 1.9 million that we have set aside in capital right now for construction needs, because those buildings will be down and we'll be able to use that to pay that. So we would not anticipate the tax increase to taxpayers.
Andrew, your question before about turf and track, were you asking about returfing and doing track?
Yeah, only because of the numbers, right?
Yeah, so what I was going to ask with relation to that was how urgent is it? Like how, I mean, I've seen that track, it's not in great shape.
Yeah.
Is it something we need to do next year, like 5 years? What
I would say your window is the next 5 years for both the track surface and the turf surface.
Yeah, the other, I don't know if you put it up here, but the slide that we have, slide 5, shows the participation numbers, right? And the two boys and girls track is, up 50% in 3 years, and football's always strong. So that's why I was wondering if we include that, if that's as urgent as these other things, right? Like, we know baseball's urgent and softball, right? We know that we need more turf fields, which is urgent. But then if our most heavily used facilities are the track and then the turf field dozier, I mean, that may, how much of the dozer refresh is the concession stands and new bleachers versus turf and track? Well, that includes three most expensive is 3, which like new buildings and stuff. That's,
We did 1, 2, and 4.
yeah, that's
What's
kind of
that
what I'm
cost?
wondering.
Yeah. Like 1, 2, and 4. What's that?
We had roughly $1 million for turf at Dozier and then another 1.2 for the track resurface. Concessions itself could be up to $3 million. It really depends on how much stuff you wanna put in there. There's a real lack right now in terms of where your football teams go. They kind of drops around the building. And that could be a great team room facility as well as,
So is it like, when you're saying concessions, is it locker room?
it could be locker rooms, coaches' offices.
It's all combined, right?
Yeah, everything in one space, what we kind of tended to be shown. Let's really go back. Then we showed that building could be positioned on the north side. It's got equal access for both east and west.
So if it went from 26 million to, it's called 36 million.
Yeah, so you're gonna add another 750,000 on the payment, depending on how you stack it.
Yeah.
Is it doable? I mean, it all depends on assessed value, what happens with growth,
Yeah,
and what we can figure out within the capital budget. I would be confident to say, because if we reduce revenue bond, we wouldn't be keep touching the fund balance. So for a period of time, we can use that fund balance dedicated to that extra payment. And so we can at least have a deferral of a tax increase with the possibility of not even having.
right, so you're saying like, you have $15 million roughly in fund balance, is that right?
Yeah,
And so you use the 750 a year for the first several years, hoping that we grow out of it.
correct.
And if we don't grow out of it, then we either need to refinance something or, well, I mean, I guess we have 20 years of,
Repurpose capital.
yeah, we have 20 years of runway, so we have no rush. I think it's impressive. I mean, I'd love to do the whole thing, but I don't know that there's appetite to spend that to raise taxes.
No,
But I think we can do.
I personally think that's a non-starter.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, I look at the right half of this as, I mean, to me, that's better, right? That is, as it says on the agenda, the baseline, that is meeting Title IX obligations, that's, I mean, it's a lot of money, but, I mean, we need those facilities.
The thing I think is important to remember too, that we may be able to get some assistance for building an internal field house with the Olympics coming. There might be some options to provide facility and all that kind of thing.
And be well positioned to take advantage of whatever that might look like for us, for sure.
So how quickly can we do phase one and part of phase four, and then what's the timing of phase two with the demolition of, or whatever we're doing at Treasure? To get this thing moving, we've talked about it for a very long time.
Well, we could start phase one and kind of support a portion of phase two on this picture and Dozier probably in the spring.
Okay,
The second part of phase two, which would include the demolition of, Treasure. Obviously, we take demolition of Treasure for us to go, but as soon as that gets down, we could be going in there as well.
so if we get started in the spring, when are these ready to be used?
Oh, they would be ready for next calendar, next,
Yeah.
season, yeah.
Installing a typical football field, softball field, baseball, if you're just looking at one, is it roughly a summer month, so 3 months.
So next, so the fall of
Yeah.
20.
That would be the target is fall of
25.
25.
25. So if we agreed to phase one, part of phase two, and whatever's essentially phase four, this could all be ready to go.
Potentially, yeah.
Fall of 25.
And I would say that if you're starting to have considerations of lumping those all together, your buying power increases.
Yeah.
Rather than the onesie twosie game, you're now purchasing a lot of turf, and there's a great incentive for whoever's on the end of that.
Yeah, the conditional use permit that we're currently processing covers phase one and two. We did not go after phase three just because it's more complex, we didn't know exactly what that was gonna look like, how high the facility was gonna be. But I don't think that adding phase four with that smaller additional building to the military Dozier would be a significant lift to add to that project.
So for discussion purposes, I mean, I'm, given that we have the reserves, given that we have, you know, the budget already allocated for the capital improvements and it wouldn't are we, I think that the question is, do we want to just do 1 and 2? Or do we want to do 1 and 2 and 4, given that we know that there's going to be improvements needed in the next 5 years, and we may as well rip the Band-Aid off and do it now, so we don't have to come back and deal with it in another 4 years, 3 years.
I leave that.
Yeah, I would do 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah. I like the bulk buying opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus construction sucks, right?
Right.
We're gonna have to do those replacing bits, so it's not anything else.
Wendy, do you have any thoughts, Wendy?
No, I like that. I like how this is broken down. Thanks for making it seems cleaner and clearer. I think that makes a lot of sense. I would support phase 1, phase 2, the parts of phase 4 that matter now.
If you have, like if you have another whole turf field and baseball field, right? And you technically do it if you had a weird looking outfield. Like, you know how baseball stadiums all have different outfield dimensions, right?
Totally,
Like it would just be tough for hitting a home run in left field.
yeah,
Right.
and that is something if we you could absolutely adjust left field. If you ever want to go down a rabbit hole, there's plenty of odd shaped fields in the world. And we may even have to creep in on the center field anyways.
Are you trying to
you're
make it
saying-
for
can you
soccer to go ahead and have?
Well, like if
Yeah.
you look at the picture on, I don't know what slide that is.
for the.
Yeah, on slide.
Couldn't you do a removable fence, so you still have that's a fence that would move over the corner of the summer?
Yeah, something like that.
You
right?
can expand left though and have normal height, and then center field, if you gotta bring it in, just have it be higher height.
Cause then that would
Yeah.
accommodate it. for-
This is the ideal baseball field. We can for sure adjust lines. You're seeing the overlay of a soccer pitch.
Right.
And being a soccer coach for a long time, I know you can run a lot of drills on a half field. But if we were to increase the size of that and decrease the size of your soccer pitch, you could probably do both. I would still shy away from movable fence, movable bleachers, kind of those Frankenstein options. But getting a solution that gets you.
But even if you have like a real field, with, as Randy said, with different height,
Sure.
you know, especially if they have to move the center field.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna pull that in.
We typically have power hitters. Are they pull hitters? Like, what do we have? What about your son? Is he pull? He's a pull hitter?
You build it, he'll hit it.
Trying to think about how we should build our stadium based on our athletes.
Do we have a big grand slam tournament kickoff, the wet party fundraiser?
Andrew, I think that using this field is what we're committed to doing. If we have that space, we want to get teams on it, using it in all manners. I'd love to see what Scott thinks, what you can design in regard. We still want to honor a great competition field, especially if the board is gonna move us in the direction of phase of the treasure complex. That gives us 2 true competition fields. We don't need another competition field, but you better believe we're still gonna have kids playing soccer and lacrosse in terms of practice on that.
Yeah.
But we don't need it as a competition. If the board is also gonna pursue the 2 true competition fields, because those 2 soccer and lacrosse pitches are at full competition. So they'll be able to host a UHSA game day 1. This would just be a practice field, so you'd hate to lose a quality competition field just to have a full. Now, if we didn't have those 2 pitches coming on, I think we'd have to be a little bit more flexible. I'm not saying we don't try to get some turf, give them as much as possible, but I think we view that as a practice facility.
How many, I mean, what is that, like 10, 15 feet? It's not huge, right?
Going out on that left field side,
Yeah.
no, you're probably 40, 50 feet more,
50 feet.
yeah. To get that full kind of right corner.
So it'd just be a practice field, right?
And you can see the wetland, you're starting to encroach on that. This is all at a very 50,000 foot view. As we get the survey work, as we start to dial things in, we will take that back to you and make sure that we're getting the most flexibility for you.
Okay, well, those are silly details, sorry for the distraction. All right, so what I would propose, given the seemingly unanimous support, is that we get the details, the firm numbers of the costs for phase 1, 2, and 4, and put that as a decision item for next month.
Can we also get timing on that, or breakdown of
Yeah.
the timing?
As well as like a proper timeline as we can get it ready for next fall. And then also have the posted meeting for whatever the lease revenue bond deciding body is, what's that called? It's like the,
Yeah, it won't be a parameters resolution, it's just an announcement now, so they
Yeah.
changed the way to do it.
oh, you just announce it?
So now it's an announcement,
Okay,
and then parameters resolution are adopted later.
okay, so. Correct. Yeah, so given there's no increase in taxes, let's prep phase 1, 2, and 4 for both next meeting. And as well as the financing vote next meeting. We will move to decision item.
Thank you.
We're gonna move to decision item 5.01 preschool funding.
Dr. Tracy, turn Dan down there, preschool director is here to answer any questions we might have prior to the decision.
Okay, so this is, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what we had anticipated the cost to increase when we built the building, correct?
Correct, yeah, so now we're
So
billing,
we're pre-funding before the budget, is that right?
correct.
Okay. Is that clear? So this was, when we built the preschools, we knew that there was gonna be an increase in funding needed because we'd have more teachers and we'd have more students. We would normally wait until the budget in the spring to do this, but given the calendar, we're looking to secure this budget today as opposed to in April or June.
The other reason is the registration, we want to start earlier, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Yep, yeah, so registration, we want to open up January 1, but that means we need to get information to families as soon as possible so they can make that decision. A lot of families are on wait lists or need to know a month ago where their 3 and 4 are going to be for childcare.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Sorry, just
Yeah.
before we get to that, I've received a number of emails about Jeremy Ranch expansion, so what does that look like in this plan? Or is there a current situation?
So Jeremy Ranch was one of the buildings that opened up this year.
Right,
And we have an expansion class children there, so we have 3 5-day-a-week, full-day photo classes, and we still have a 3-year-old, 2 sections of twice-a-week classes. And so, there are families that reach out to me asking about 3-year-olds
right.
for the full-day offering and 5 days a week, and that's part of this budget expansion.
Okay.
So what we're just saying is this is what we had anticipated when we voted on the capital expansion, it's just early from the budget. All right, so
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to approve the funding as proposed in board docs.
I'm
Make a motion.
making a motion to approve for that.
Second. Okay. Do we have any questions for Dan or Randy or comments?
This is important.
Nope.
All right, all those in favor of approving the preschool funding, please say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
We have 3 policies for posting. I'll entertain a motion to post 3 policies. Policy 2000, student representation on the board, policy 2015, advisory committees, policy 2030, policy development.
I'll make a motion to post those policies as read.
Second. Okay. Do we have any questions or comments on these 3 policies?
No.
All right, all those in favor, of posting these 3 policies, please say aye.
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 Okay, that passes. Okay, we have public comment on the school closure of Treasure Mountain Junior High. Do we have anyone here to comment specifically on Treasure Mountain Junior High and school closure?
I did get a comment on that.
Okay,
You want me to just go ahead and read that?
sure.
This is from, well, we got this comment when we were gonna have the previous meeting, and then, she sent another one. This is from Bitsy Bill. In your discussion to replace the Treasure Mountain Junior High School with a sports facility, we asked that any plan will include an indoor swimming pool. Having an indoor pool within the city limits could expand cross-training for all Park City School District athletes and enhance the training for our high school swim team and water polo players. The attached photo where our water polo players recently competed in Salt Lake City shows Skyline High School's impressive indoor pool as an example. The mark is overcrowded and its outdoor pool is closed during our long winter months. Having an indoor pool centrally located to local schools will reduce traffic and our two congested highways by alleviating the need to transport local students on school buses to the Everett Hill Pool miles away. Since our community will host the Olympics again, now is the perfect time to prioritize local sport venues that include an indoor pool. In conclusion, would provide greater opportunities for our school district's young athletes to reach their potential and achieve success.
Okay, thank you, Lori. All right, that public comment is now closed. Now we will open for our normal public comment. We have at least one person here. Okay, can you give the blue slips to Lori and then we'll just kind of call you up in order.
Yeah. John? Wait, I gotta set timer to sit down.
Should I get 5 or 3?
Lori?
Okay. So after hearing what I just heard, I had to read, kind of think everything, but quickly, I'd like to get all of the people here supporting from sports teams and from youth, just to kind of raise their hands. So I think we've got a broad representation. Just a little background, John McCurdy from Park City Passing League. I'm here representing the sports and the clubs. We have in attendance a representative from just about every sport and club with a stake in the development of new and better facilities. We are here to support the board. We had just moved here in 2015 when we saw the bond fail. I watched when a small group of people organized against the board. The board appeared to have no outside support network to counter the opposition. And I regret that my wife and I were not in a place to help. And the community failed to help you. Since that time, I've been told over and over that a sports and recreation bond in Park City will not pass. The people here have countless hours and days organizing and silently running the clubs and sports which engage hundreds of kids and families in this community. Our program, Park City Passing League, each and every year helps to organize over 450 kids from 2nd to 12th grade for the past 6 years. And we've raised and donated approximately $400,000 and raised $225,000 for our new digital scoreboard. We are here to organize and support the school board. Organize and support the school board. We are here to drive support you need to build the new facilities. Park City has a community of families, kids, and teens that want and need the facilities found at every school in the valley to create the opportunities for our kids that our kids need and deserve. In the 2015 school bond vote, we, the community, failed to support you. The group assembled here in this room, to the best of my knowledge, is not here to berate, complain, or blame, but to let you know if you are willing to make a bold move for our community, we have your back. We are organized. This community has successfully driven and run organizations that our community rely on for the kids of Park City. We will support you actively. I urge you, the board, to think big and be bold. Our facilities, considering of a pool, turf baseball fields, tennis courts, potentially covered soccer fields, etc., can be achieved and benefit the entire community of Park City. From what I just heard, the proposal of 1, 2, and 4 to a lot of the communities here will be acceptable. To many, it will not. Unless it is laid out in a long-term plan that we can all get in and support. We will drive a bond vote. We are here to let you know we can gather a lot of support throughout our communities. This is not only a mountain town anymore. We have a strong kid network, a strong support network. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kim Cannon.
Hi, I'm Kim Canning. I'm here representing Park City swim team. So I just was involved, I think 24 hours ago with this great committee that I'm really excited to be a part of and represent. The swim team represented on the plan only illustrates the high school swim team. And I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that there's a Park City club team supported by the district that has over 100 kids on it across the district, so elementary, junior high, and high school. We have a 50-kid waiting list. There's not enough room for lessons. The water polo team, I mean, there's a kind of a battle between the swim team and the water polo team around practice. So again, not to say, please do our stuff over, but I think there's something to be considered here around these phases. And as the letter that was written or read earlier, swimming can be cross functional for all sorts of teams and be a really important part of athletic progression. So, thanks.
Heather, also speaking on the athletics. Heather, yeah.
My name is Heather Bratcher. I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm an athlete, and I'm a parent of 3 student athletes in the Park City School District. I'm here to represent water polo. I've been involved in it for a lot longer than you, a lot of people have been alive in this room, because I've been playing for a very long time. I love that you guys are doing this. In the last several years, so many of our sports need new facilities. I have 2 asks. Please look at the sports that have no high school facility. Tennis has no home courts. There's no home pool facility. Is there a field house? So many of our kids are pushing into our rec facilities, overwhelming them, playing late at night, getting reduced access that none of our competitors have. How are 9th graders getting to these things that can't drive? There's a safety issue when a kid has to walk from campus to the mark to play tennis in a snowstorm. Or has to come home at 9 o'clock at night and can't drive and has to figure out how to get home. The swimming kids have to drive from the high school area all the way to Ecker. What if you don't drive? What if your parents aren't available to drive you at 2:30 in the afternoon because they work? There are safety issues as well. So my second ask, please think about a pool in this proposal. I don't think it's there, but 100% is needed. We are fighting and clawing for every minute of pool space. That waiting list for the swim team wouldn't exist if we had more time. High school boys this season, right now, this fall season, not one home game. Not one home game in Park City, because there's no time to host a home match in our schedule. It's not possible. They had to create like a little scrimmage so they could have a senior night.
For swimming?
For water polo, for boys water polo. What other sport in this town is so removed from the high school that no one on campus knows it even really exists or can support it emotionally? There's no banners, there's no pep band, there's no cheerleader. There's none of that you see with the other sports. And that is a little bit true for swim team too, because they're so removed. I am a youth coach. I teach 10-year-olds that finish practice after 8 o'clock at night. I never would have taken my 10-year-old to a practice that ended, that didn't get them home until 8:30 at night. But these kids are tough and they're awesome and our programs are growing. Our kids go to college and play water polo and they swim in college. And they have no support, almost. We raise our own funds, we pay for our own balls, we pay for our own pool time. It would be awesome if there was one campus pool that felt like they were part of their school community and their school teams. So it's inclusion, it's accessibility, it's time. When the water polo teams have practice, varsity girls, JV girls, varsity boys, JV boys in the same pool for 2 hours. That's half a pool for girls and half a pool for boys. I think you can see that's not ideal.
Yes.
That's it. Please think about a solution to the pool problem.
So I think a good part of that, and I totally hear you about another pool facility. I think part of that is an administrative issue, right? I mean, you have a pool that can have a water polo match in it, correct? It's deep enough for the.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's
so,
no time for it.
right, but that's an administrative issue. That's not a facility issue. And I think that needs to be addressed, right? We have a lot of things right now. We're looking at. I just want to acknowledge it.
Sorry, there's not enough hours in the day.
I think the issue is even though it's built on a pool, on a school site, it's not on a high school site. And so there are club teams using it, which have to happen. We don't have a high school team if we don't have youth swimming and youth water polo, there would be no players. But since we have youth programming and high school programming in the same place, there's totally not enough time.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think that this is emblematic though of the bigger issue we're having. So I hear you, and I think we'll look into it tactically as well as.
I just hate to see this opportunity that is so amazing with this land and this plan, making a plan that's organized. I love that.
Can I ask a question, though? Why wasn't swimming a part of the initial master planning? Because when I asked at the beginning, is there anything that's not included in here, that never came up, so is that what happened? Anybody know? Because it is important, it's.
For varsity sports.
So I think some of it is that, in Park City, there's a high school team, there's a high school boys and a high school girls swim team. There's also a club team. Park City is different from every other, school or district in Utah, I think. The club team is sponsored, paid for, supported by the district. And so, again, when you look at those numbers, the numbers that are represented for swimming are only representative of high school. And so I think there's this whole kind of other piece that's not accounted for in the proposal. And, you know, for a long time, my kids have swam for this school since we lived here. For a long time, I didn't even realize that the club team was part of the district. So they're all fighting for the same space. So I think in everybody's mind, it's like, well, the high school is the high school team and that's it. That's not true. The district supports the club team as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Ally.
Many of you know me from the 2015 Master Plan Bond. I helped lead the group called Citizens for Better Education that defeated that bond. I'm here tonight to ease the fears of opposition to a bond for new and improved Park City School District athletic facilities if a bond is needed. The effort in 2015 was a statement by longtime residents that the school board do a better job considering community values and give more realistic building costs. When that bond failed, we promised to be here to help you pass the next attempt, and that one passed. Today, longtime and new residents are before you with a different ask. In the last 10 years, the community has evolved. I'm here tonight with many sports behind me and representatives that are not all big sports, because athletics is less about numbers and more about whole person development, a fundamental value of the Park City constituency at large. We are here tonight, and several of the speakers before me, to ask you for more than the current master plan envisions. In addition to the fields, the diamonds, the courts, the locker rooms, and the field house, we're asking for a competition quality indoor pool to be added to the Park City High School Treasure Mountain campus site. Why? Because every sport can use a pool. It creates an inclusive environment for athletes and different community groups of all ages. Recovery, low impact training, cross training, water safety invites everyone into a pool. Improved facilities within town limits will reinforce the point that Park City is a community where world-class teams are coming to train and where coaches, local and beyond, are training world-class high school athletes. And Park City School District gets to make the commitment to doing it better. This group cannot guarantee that a bond will pass, but it can guarantee to work with you to inform all generations in the community. We can seek grants from national sources such as USA Swimming to help fund a pool like they did in Boise, Idaho. If the Park City School District Athletic Master Plan includes facilities on the Park City campus for all varsity high school sports and recognized clubs, you have a good chance to attract that wider community support. Because the plan features the holistic nature of today's high school education.
Sports facilities on campus will also reduce traffic on our roads. The master plan needs to reflect the larger, more evolved community that we now live in, a decade since the 2015 bond. So in closing, we support the Park City School District expanding the master plan to show genuine support for current, past, and future student athletes in a multitude of sports.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you.
Barry Nam.
Thank you. I mainly came to talk to you about Rosh Hashanah and to thank you for considering it the way you are and to underscore, Andrew, what you said, which is that it has actually become worse and not better in all the years that I've been here, which is the number of years I've been in the school district, I think, is closing in on 17 or 18 and out, but it has gotten so almost treacherous for kids to navigate the high holidays and to have to advocate for themselves and hope that the teacher is receptive. And even when the teachers are receptive and helpful and all of the things that our teachers are, it's still not enough to compensate for the kind of loss that they have in their academics. Seth misses a lot of school, and I talked about this at the first school board meeting of the year. He misses a lot of school with a sports contract that is so well supported. And the one day that he needed this year to worship with his family, he was stressed out beyond recognition. He came home for weeks afterwards. He's still making up stuff because the level of work that he missed in every class was so high that he's gotten behind. And he's tearing out his hair. He's a senior who's applying to college and thinks he's the only one who ever did it. So, but that's how they all feel. And so when it gets worse rather than better, it really feels, it's this collateral damage that comes along with it. Because it's not just that they have to advocate for themselves, which my kid is certainly very good at, and not all kids are. And that's a really important thing. And I'm one of the only parents who shows up to talk about this issue because people do not feel comfortable speaking up. I grew up in a town a lot smaller than Park City. It was a one school district. Jealous. And it was still tough, but it was much more manageable with one school. And the Jewish community here is so much larger than it was when we first moved here, and so much larger than the one I grew up in. And it is stunning to me that very few people feel comfortable speaking up and asking for this particular civil right to be recognized. And so when I come here to speak, I'm not speaking for myself and I'm not speaking for my kid. I'm adding voices that aren't speaking for themselves. And so whatever the board can do to make this change is hard. There's nothing easy about it. There's nothing comfortable about it. We all sort of hate it. And I was thinking, that's what I have to say. So technically I'm for a group, but I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our business. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is November.
Give one reminder,
Yes,
you're gonna say November 19th.
yes.
Remember, November 12th, we'll have the hearing at Treasure Mountain for the closure of the school. We have to have one there.
So we will adjourn until our special meeting on November 12th at 4 p.m. at Treasure.
And then be back here November 19th.
And then we'll be back here.
Okay, I'll
Keep following.
Make a motion to adjourn until the 12th and then again.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Bye, thanks.
How long